Hi, I'm Dr. Grove Higgins, and I'm sitting down with John Sinclair. He's a CPT as well as a strength conditioning coach and a medical exercise specialist at the National Personal Trainers or National Strength Conditioning Association's Personal Trainers Conference in Baltimore here. He just gave a fantastic presentation on strength training using different techniques and such, specifically the Viper Pro, which he has been helping to develop over some time here. Could you give us just a little education on why you think differently about exercise than, say, most of the industry when it comes to strength conditioning, training skill in particular, and how that's impacted how you train versus most of the industry?
Right. It's funny, where I grew up in small town Saskatchewan in Midwest Canada, right? Mm-hmm. And where I grew up, we were out playing all day long, right? And so I'm from a town of 300 people. So in a town of 300 people, you have to entertain yourself somehow, right? And so sport was always something that entertained me, and I was always out playing with my friends, and whether I was a kid, and then when I was in high school, I was competitive in 8 different sports. Played hockey and baseball were 2 of my bigger ones. Went off to school and went to the University of Alberta, got my phys ed degree there, tried to crack the hockey team, didn't quite make it, but stayed playing junior hockey, and then playing baseball in the summer with the senior baseball team back home. But when I wasn't playing sports, I was on the farm or helping either my dad at the grain elevator or my stepdad out on the farm. And I didn't spend as much time on the farm as some of the other kids in the community did, but it was enough time to realize that real strength comes from the tasks that we do on any given day. So if you were to look at my brother, who's a framer now, right? So he has tremendous tensile strength in his left arm as he's operating a hammer with his right.
Specialized.
You got it, right? And so we are products of our environment. And what got me particularly interested in working with Viper Pro was my good friend Michelle Delcourt, who invented the tool, was also living in Edmonton at the same time I was. He was training hockey players in one facility, I'm training hockey players in another facility. We're both going about our traditional way in which we were taught about strength training, even though he was from an Alberta farm and I was from a Saskatchewan farm. We were being taught that this is how you train athletes. Ironically, athletes kept coming to see us saying every year they want to get stronger. They want to get stronger. They want to get stronger. Sure. We'd look at their data and go, you're getting stronger. And they're like, yeah, but we're getting knocked off the puck. I'm like, interesting. So what you're telling me is that squats, deadlifts, bench press, power cleans aren't transferring to your sport. And they're like, well, I guess so, because I'm still getting knocked off the puck. Who's knocking you off the puck? The farm kids. And we're like, here's 2 farm kids. They should know that instinctually, but that education's been pushed away from us. So what we started doing is Michelle and his other co-inventor, Simon Bennett, who's now the director of performance for the Edmonton Oilers, they started talking differently about strength training. I knew it inherently, but it was coached out of me, right, through our education systems, which was, at the time, that's when functional exercise kind of became the thing, right? So we're loading you in different directions, different vectors, hitting different tissues in different ways, using different implements. And then we started looking back, well, this is stuff the Eastern Europeans have been doing forever. They weren't only just doing power cleans, they were doing explosive jumping things, they were doing sprint work, they were doing all these things that we kind of got away from and started to only load people in the vertical direction or the sagittal direction. And so we've lost that thought process of how we would develop an athlete with task-specific movement. Because if you're a shot putter, you throw a shot, and then you're off, the stuff you do off of that is going to be, I might do some of my linear pulls or explosive kind of stuff, right? So what we did is we went, well, imagine if there was a device that could load you in task-specific ways, such as skating, but would also allow you to inherently increase your tensile strength, like warding and battling and doing all the things that we have to do in all chaotic multi-directional sports. Because the sports that we play are not going up and down,
Right.
right?
Right.
And they're not going just this way, and it's happening with different speeds, at different directions, and sometimes loaded, sometimes not loaded, right?
Right.
And so we wanted to create something like that, and by happenstance, an athlete knocked over a piece of rubber flooring that was all taped up in a cylinder, knocked it over, guys go and pick it up, and like, wait a minute, this is something I can actually load in different directions just by tilting a big heavy piece of rubber.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, imagine if we could actually build a tool out of this, and what if we put handles in it, right? And they're like, could you imagine all the things that they did? And then that started the idea of developing this tool called Viper. And it's now, since I think that was around 2007, 2008, and now it's developed into what we call Viper Pro, which is our second manufactured product or iteration of it, where we enhanced it based on, we've used it now for 7 or 8 years, now we make that tool even better. And so we added some things to it, made it more robust, a stronger piece of equipment, put some different bevel handles to the top of it so you could actually do some grip strength and have some leverage on twisting and turning it. Added a textured surface to it so you get the tactile sensation of using the tool. So there's a lot of cool things that we did with the tool itself, but what we had to do to make that tool relevant was we actually had to develop a different concept of training. And that's where we coined the term loaded movement training. And loaded movement training came up with this idea of training movement strength instead of muscular strength.
Right.